"Get those brats off my plane before I have security drag them by their ankles." That was the last thing Senior Flight Attendant Beatrice Holloway shouted. Before she made the biggest mistake of her life, she thought she was just kicking off a quiet father and his two sleeping 5-year-olds because she didn't like the color of their skin in first class. She didn't know that the man holding those boys was not just a passenger. He was Silas Sterling, the man who had secretly purchased the airline's entire debt portfolio that morning. Beatrice didn't just delay a flight. She triggered a chain reaction that would ground an entire fleet, expose a federal smuggling ring, and end with her in handcuffs before the sun went down. This is how one act of cruelty shut down an empire. The rain battered the reinforced glass of JFK's Terminal 4, creating a rhythmic drumming that usually soothed Silas Sterling. But today, the sound only mirrored the headache pulsing behind his temples. Silas adjusted the collar of his charcoal cashmere coat. At 38, he was a ghost in the corporate world. He wasn't on the cover of Forbes or doing flashy interviews on CNBC. He was the money behind the money, a private equity titan who specialized in distressed assets. He moved in silence, dismantling corrupt boards and revitalizing failing giants. But today, he wasn't a CEO. He was just Dad. "Daddy, my ears hurt," Liam whispered, burying his face into Silas's shoulder. "I know, buddy. I know," Silas murmured, rubbing the boy's back in his other arm. Liam's twin brother Noah was fast asleep, clutching a worn-out plush airplane. They were tired. It had been a grueling week. Silas's wife Sarah had passed away 3 years ago, and every year, he took the boys to her favorite spot in the Swiss Alps to scatter white roses. It was a solemn tradition, one that left them all emotionally drained. They just wanted to go home to Atlanta. Silas walked toward the gate for Sovereign Air Flight 902. He usually flew private, but his Gulfstream was grounded for mechanical issues in Zurich, and Sovereign was the only commercial carrier with a direct flight available on such short notice. He had booked 3 first-class seats, 1A, 1B, and 1C. He didn't care about the champagne or the legroom. He just wanted space for the twins to sleep without bothering anyone. As he approached the gate, he checked his phone. A text from his lawyer, Arthur Penhaligon, flashed on the screen. "The acquisition is finalized. The ink is dry. You own the debt. Technically, as of 8 a.m., you own them. Do you want to announce it?" Silas typed back, "No, let me get home first. We'll announce the restructuring Monday. I just want a nap." He pocketed the phone and approached the boarding counter. The gate agent, a young woman named Chloe, smiled warmly. "Good morning, sir. Traveling with little ones today, just trying to get them home." Silas smiled, handing over his boarding pass. "They're out cold, I bet. You're in row 1. Priority boarding is open. Have a safe flight, Mr. Sterling." It started well. It usually did. Silas carried both boys down the jet bridge, his biceps straining slightly under the weight. He stepped onto the plane, turning left toward first class. The cabin was dimly lit, smelling of lavender and sanitized leather. It was mostly empty, save for an elderly couple in row 3 and a man in a business suit into F who was already aggressively typing on a laptop. Silas settled Noah into 1A and Liam into 1B, buckling them in gently so they wouldn't wake. He sat in 1C, exhaling a long, deep breath. That was when she appeared, Beatrice Holloway. She didn't walk, she marched. Her uniform was a size too tight. Her blonde hair was sprayed into a helmet of perfection, and her eyes scanned the cabin like a predator looking for a wounded gazelle. She was the lead purser, and she wore her gold wings like a sheriff's badge in a lawless town. She stopped at row 1. Her eyes didn't land on Silas's expensive coat or his Patek Philippe watch. They landed on his skin. Then they darted to the 2 sleeping boys. Her lip curled just a fraction of a millimeter. "Boarding passes," she snapped. "No good morning, no welcome aboard, just a demand." Silas blinked, surprised by the tone. He reached into his pocket. "They're right here." Beatrice snatched them from his hand. She scrutinized them, holding them up to the light as if looking for a watermark that would prove they were fake. "These are for first class," she said, her voice dripping with skepticism. "I'm aware," Silas said, keeping his voice low. "I bought them." We have a policy about children in first class, Beatrice lied smoothly, handing the tickets back with 2 fingers as if they were contaminated. They need to be controlled. If they make a single sound, I will move you to economy. This cabin is for our premium clientele. Silas looked around the nearly empty cabin. They are sleeping. Mom and I paid full fare for these seats, 3 of them. Don't take that tone with me, Beatrice hissed, leaning in. I decide who belongs in my cabin. Just keep them quiet. I don't want to see toys. I don't want to hear crying, and I certainly don't want them running around. Silas felt a familiar heat rise in his chest, the old anger of being judged before he even opened his mouth. But he pushed it down. Just get home, he told himself. Don't engage, understood, Silas said curtly. He turned away, dismissing her. That was his second mistake. Beatrice Holloway didn't like being dismissed, especially not by someone she deemed unworthy of her airspace. She stormed off to the galley, the curtain swishing violently behind her. Problem? The man into F asked, not looking up from his laptop. Just a warm welcome, Silas muttered. 10 minutes later, the plane was fully boarded, the fastened seatbelt sign pinged on, and the engines whined to life. Silas closed his eyes, then disaster struck. Noah, still asleep, shifted in his seat. His hand knocked his plush airplane, a small, soft toy with a little metal bell inside, off the tray table. It hit the floor with a soft jingle. It wasn't loud, it was barely audible over the hum of the air conditioning. But Beatrice was waiting. She tore through the galley curtain like a bull, seeing red. She didn't walk to Silas. She loomed over him. I told you, she shrieked, her voice shattering the quiet cabin. I told you, no noise. That is a disruption. Noah woke up with a start, terrified by the screaming woman standing over him. He began to cry. Liam, sensing his brother's distress, woke up and started wailing too. Look at this, Beatrice shouted, gesturing to the other passengers. I will not have this chaos in first class. They are 5 years old, Silas snapped, unbuckling his seatbelt to comfort his sons. They dropped a toy. Lower your voice. You are the one scaring them. Sit down, Beatrice commanded. Captain, she picked up the cabin interphone. Captain O'Malley, we have a security threat in row 1. Aggressive passenger refusing instructions. I need them off. Silas froze. Security threat? Are you insane? The plane, which had just begun its push back from the gate, lurched to a halt. You're done. Beatrice sneered, a triumphant gleam in her eyes. Grab your brats and get out. Police are on their way. The silence that followed Beatrice's declaration was heavy, suffocating. The other passengers in first class were watching, eyes wide. You have got to be kidding me, the businessman into F said, finally closing his laptop. He didn't do anything. The kid dropped a doll. Stay out of this, sir, or you'll be joining them, Beatrice snapped at the witness. She turned back to Silas. Get your bags now. Silas looked at his terrified sons. Noah was shaking, tears streaming down his face. Daddy, are we in trouble? He hiccuped. No, Noah, we aren't, Silas said, his voice deadly calm. He looked up at Beatrice. You realize what you are doing, right? We have pushed back. You are returning to the gate to remove a father and a sleeping children because of a drop toy. Do you know the cost of that? Fuel, the delay. I don't care about the cost, Beatrice scoffed. I care about the safety and comfort of actual premium passengers, people who belong here, not lottery winners. The racial undertone was subtle, but sharp as a razor. Lottery winners, Silas repeated slowly. He reached into his pocket, not for a weapon, but for his phone. Put that away, Beatrice lunged, slapping the phone out of his hand. It skittered across the floor under the seat of 2F. That is assault, Silas said. He didn't yell. He didn't stand up to intimidate her. He simply stated a fact that was securing the cabin. Beatrice yelled. The cockpit door opened. Captain Richard O'Malley stepped out. He was a large, red-faced man with the look of someone who just wanted to get to his layover hotel bar. What is the problem here? O'Malley asked, looking at Silas with immediate suspicion. He's aggressive, Richard. He's refusing to control his kids. They're throwing objects, and when I corrected him, he threatened me, Beatrice lied. She did it with such ease, such practiced fluidity. that Silas realized she had done this before. "I did no such thing," Silas said, keeping his hands visible. "My son dropped a plush toy. This flight attendant is escalating a non-event. I demand you continue the flight." Captain O'Malley didn't ask the other passengers. He didn't check the cameras. He looked at Beatrice, then he looked at Silas. "We have a zero-tolerance policy for abusing my crew," O'Malley said. "B says you go, you go. Gate agents are bringing the jet bridge back. Port Authority is waiting." "Captain," Silas said, "I am asking you to reconsider. For the sake of your career, reconsider." O'Malley laughed, a dry, humorless bark. "My career is fine, pal. You're the one going to jail. Get off my plane." The plane reconnected with the jet bridge with a heavy thud. The cabin door opened, and 3 Port Authority officers stepped in, hands resting on their belts. "This the guy?" the lead officer asked. "That's him." Beatrice pointed a manicured finger at Silas. "He's volatile. Watch his hands." Silas stood up slowly. He picked up Noah. He picked up Liam. He didn't fight. He didn't scream. He looked at the businessman into F who handed him his phone back. "I got it all on video, man," the businessman whispered. "Everything." "Thank you," Silas whispered back. "Name's Silas. Keep that safe, Connor." The man nodded. Silas walked to the door. He paused in front of Beatrice. She was smiling a smug, satisfied smirk that distorted her face. "You picked the wrong family," Silas said softly. "Get moving." Beatrice sneered. "And don't bother trying to rebook on Sovereign. You're on the no-fly list now." Silas walked up the jet bridge. The rain still pounding on the metal roof. The officers escorted him into the terminal. They were tense, ready for a fight. "Am I under arrest?" Silas asked as they entered the gate area. "Flight crew wants to press charges for disturbance." The officer said, "We got to take you in for processing." "Fine," Silas said. He set the boys down on a bench. "Officer, before you cuff me, I need to make one phone call. My lawyer is the only one who can pick up my children. If I'm detained," the officer looked at the crying twins, then at the calm, well-dressed man. "Make it quick." Silas dialed a number. It rang once. "Penhalawan." The voice answered. "Arthur," Silas said, his voice echoing in the sudden silence of the gate area. "Execute Order 66 on Sovereign Air." Silas Arthur sounded confused. "What's going on?" "I'm at JFK. I've just been kicked off Flight 902. The captain and lead purser assaulted me and removed me. They traumatized the boys. Are you hurt?" "No." "But Arthur, I own the debt, right? I own the holding company." "Yes, as of this morning. You control 51% of their operational liabilities. You can call in the loans." "Don't just call in the loans," Silas said, his eyes fixed on the Sovereign airplane through the window. "I want a complete operational freeze. They breached the good faith clause of the lending agreement by assaulting the primary shareholder, me. You want to ground them. I want to shut them down now. Ground every bird in the sky. Lock the hangars, freeze the payroll accounts, and get the CEO of Sovereign, Gregory Vance. No, wait, not Vance, Gregory Holloway. On the phone, Holloway." Arthur paused. "Wait, is there a relation? The flight attendant's name is Beatrice Holloway." Silas said, glancing at her name tag in his memory. "If she's related to the CEO. This gets even better. I'm on it. Give me 10 minutes. Silas hung up. He looked at the police officer. "Officer," Silas said calmly, "I suggest you wait 10 minutes before you file that paperwork. Because the crime scene isn't here. It's on that plane." "What are you talking about?" the officer asked. "You'll see," Silas said, sitting down next to his boys. "Just watch the screens." Inside the terminal, the atmosphere had shifted from tense to confused. Officer Miller, the Port Authority cop who had been ready to handcuff Silas, was now staring at his computer screen at the podium. He blinked, typed something, and blinked again. He looked over the counter at Silas, who was sitting quietly on the bench, wiping tears from Noah's cheeks with a silk handkerchief. "Mr. Sterling," Officer Miller asked, his voice dropping an octave. "Yes, officer," Silas replied without looking up. "The system says, well, it says you have top-secret clearance level flagging from the Department of Defense, and that you're the registered owner of." The officer squinted. "Sterling Global Holdings. That's correct, Silas said, finally meeting the officer's eyes. Am I still being processed for disturbance of the peace? Officer Miller swallowed hard. I think there's been a misunderstanding, sir. I'm going to need to call my sergeant. You do that, Silas said, and while you're at it, tell him to bring the K9 unit. Narcotics and currency dogs. Why? Because Silas pointed out the window at the Sovereign jet sitting on the tarmac. That plane isn't going anywhere. And once my lawyers finish filing the injunction for asset mismanagement, federal marshals are going to strip that bird down to the bolts. I have a feeling they're going to find more than just my kid's luggage in the hold. Meanwhile, on Flight 902, the mood was drastically different. Beatrice Halloway was popping a bottle of Dom Perignon in the galley. She poured 2 glasses, one for herself and one for Captain O'Malley. To a quiet flight, she toasted, clinking the glass against the metal counter. God, I hate it when they think they own the place. I bought 3 seats. Please go back to coach where you belong. You handled it well, B. O'Malley said, leaning out of the cockpit door. We're running 20 minutes late, but we can make it up in the air. Let's get this bird in the sky. O'Malley returned to his seat and keyed the radio tower. Sovereign 902, ready for taxi, requesting clearance to runway for left. Static crackled. Then the voice of the Kennedy ground control came back. It wasn't the usual bored cadence of an air traffic controller. It was sharp, urgent. Sovereign 902, hold position immediately. Do not repeat. Do not move the aircraft. O'Malley frowned. Tower 902, we are pushed back and engines are running. What's the hold, Sovereign 902? Your flight plan has been rescinded. We have received a code black notification regarding your carrier's operating status. Code black. O'Malley looked at his co-pilot. That's a bankruptcy code. That's impossible. We flew yesterday, Tower. There must be a mistake, O'Malley argued. We are fully fueled and loaded. Negative, 902. Your insurance certificate was just revoked electronically by the underwriter. You are legally uninsured as of 2 minutes ago. If you move that plane 1 inch, you are violating federal aviation laws. Shut down engines immediately and prepare for towing. O'Malley's face went pale. Without insurance, the plane was effectively a 200-ton paperweight. What is going on? Beatrice stormed into the cockpit. Why aren't we moving? The passengers are starting to ask questions. We've been grounded, O'Malley whispered. Not just us, the insurance was pulled. Who could pull the insurance at 10 a.m. on a Friday? Beatrice demanded. Suddenly, the cockpit printer, the ACK system used for company messages, began to whir. A long strip of paper printed out. O'Malley tore it off. His hands shook as he read it. From Sterling Global Holdings, Asset Recovery Div, to all Sovereign Air crew. Subject, immediate cessation of operations. Effective immediately. All assets of Sovereign Air are frozen due to breach of contract. The new majority debt holder, Mr. Silas Sterling, has declared the management unfit. All pilots are ordered to power down. All crew are terminated pending investigation. O'Malley looked up at Beatrice, his eyes wide with horror. Silas Sterling, that was the guy in 1C. Beatrice froze. The champagne glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. No, she whispered. He was just some guy. He was nobody. He owns the debt, O'Malley roared, slamming his hand on the console. He owns the mortgage on this plane. You just kicked the landlord out of his own building. Beatrice felt the blood drain from her face, but it wasn't just fear of losing her job. It was something else, panic, real, terrifying panic. She looked back toward the galley, toward a specific locked compartment in the floor where the crew luggage was stored. We can't be towed back, she stammered. Richard, we have to fly. We have to. Are you deaf? We can't move. You don't understand, Beatrice hissed, grabbing his arm. My brother Gregory. He put something on board. If we get towed back and customs comes on. O'Malley stared at her. What did you bring on my plane, Beatrice? Before she could answer, the plane shook. Not from the engines, but from the heavy mechanical latch of a tow truck, hooking onto the front landing gear outside the window. Flashing red and blue lights swarmed the tarmac. It wasn't just Port Authority anymore. It was Customs and Border Protection. And right in the middle of the convoy, Walking calmly next to a silver SUV was Silas Sterling, holding a cell phone to his ear. He looked up at the cockpit window. He couldn't see them, but they could see him. He hung up the phone, pointed at the plane, and made a cut-it motion across his throat. 500 miles away in Atlanta, Gregory Holloway was having a fantastic lunch. As the COO of Sovereign Air, he spent most of his Fridays at the Buckhead Country Club. He was sipping scotch and laughing with other executives. He was a man who had inherited the airline from his father and had spent the last 10 years slowly running it into the ground while lining his own pockets. He checked his Rolex. 10:30 a.m. Flight 902 should be in the air. That was the important one. Another round, Gregory? His vice president asked. Make it a double. Gregory grinned. I'm celebrating. We're moving a very lucrative package from New York today. Once it lands in London, our cash flow problems are over. His phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again and again. Popular man, the VP laughed. Gregory frowned and pulled the phone out. Missed call, Operations Control Center. Missed call, Beatrice. Missed call, Beatrice. Missed call, unknown. He answered the unknown number, annoyed. This is Holloway. Make it quick. Mr. Holloway, a crisp British voice spoke. This is Arthur Penhaligon, legal counsel for Sterling Global Holdings. Sterling, Gregory squinted. We're in talks with you guys about restructuring the loans. My lawyers are handling it. Call them. The talks are over. Mr. Holloway, the restructuring happened this morning. My client purchased 100% of your outstanding debt from the bank syndicate, okay? So you're the new bank. Congratulations. Why are you calling me on my personal line? I'm calling to inform you that we are invoking the bad actor clause of the lending agreement, Arthur said pleasantly. Specifically Section 4, Paragraph 2, any action by executive leadership or their immediate family that damages the reputation or operational integrity of the asset is grounds for immediate foreclosure. Gregory laughed nervously. What are you talking about? I'm at lunch. I haven't done anything. No. But your sister did. Beatrice Holloway, the lead purser on Flight 902. Gregory went cold. What did Bea do? She assaulted the principal investor, Arthur said. She racially profiled Mr. Silas Sterling, harassed his 5-year-old children, and had him removed from the aircraft by police. Mr. Sterling, who is a widower, was traveling home from his wife's memorial. He is displeased. Gregory stood up, knocking his chair over. The restaurant went silent. She kicked Silas Sterling off the plane, indeed. And because Mr. Sterling is a man of action, he has utilized his rights as the senior creditor to freeze all Sovereign Air assets. Your fuel accounts are locked. Your insurance is void. Your pilots have been ordered to stand down. Effectively, Mr. Holloway, you are no longer the CEO of an airline. You are the CEO of a parking lot. You can't do that, Gregory screamed. We have thousands of passengers. We have cargo. Ah, yes, the cargo. Arthur's voice turned icy. Mr. Sterling mentioned the cargo. He found it odd that your sister was so desperate too. She tried to override the captain to keep the plane moving. He suspected there might be something unmanifested on board. Gregory felt bile rise in his throat. 50 kilos of uncut synthetic opioids hidden in the beverage carts. It was a side deal Gregory had made with a cartel to cover his gambling debts. Beatrice was the mule, ensuring nobody checked the carts. Gregory stammered, sweat pouring down his face. Let's be reasonable. We can comp his tickets. We can. Mr. Sterling doesn't want a refund. Gregory, he wants an audit. He has instructed the Port Authority and Customs to do a deep search of Flight 902. They are boarding the aircraft now with K-9 units. No, Gregory whispered. No, you have to stop them. I can't do that, Arthur said, but I suggest you call a criminal defense attorney. Good day. Mr. Holloway. Gregory dropped the phone. He looked around the country club. The green grass, the waiters in white coats, the luxury, it was all over. Greg, the VP asked. What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. Shut up, Gregory hissed. He grabbed his keys. He had to get to the airport. He had to get to a private plane and get out of the country before they opened those beverage carts. Back at JFK, The situation was escalating into chaos. The jet bridge had been reconnected. The passengers inside Flight 902. The air conditioning had been cut, and the cabin was getting hot when the engines were killed. "Ladies and gentlemen," Captain O'Malley's voice came over the PA, shaking visibly, "please remain seated. We have federal agents boarding the aircraft." Beatrice was in the galley, frantically trying to unlock the seal on the third beverage cart. Her hands were trembling so badly she couldn't get the key in. Come on, if she could just flush it, if she could just get the bricks into the toilet. She sobbed. "Police, hands up." The curtain was ripped back. 3 tactical officers with customs across their chests stormed the galley. "Step away from the cart." The lead officer shouted, pointing a rifle at her. "It's just soda," Beatrice screamed, stepping in front of it. "You can't touch this, it's airline property, Mom. Move, or you will be neutralized." Beatrice looked at the cart, then at the officers. She looked out the small porthole window. Down on the tarmac, standing next to the police cruiser, Silas Sterling was watching. He was holding Noah and Liam's hands. He looked up right at her window, and even from this distance, she could feel the weight of his gaze. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't gloating. He just looked disappointed. Beatrice stepped aside. The officer shoved her against the bulkhead and handcuffed her. Another officer kicked the beverage cart open. He pulled out a tray of tomato juice, then reached behind the false back of the drawer. He pulled out a brick wrapped in thick black plastic. He took a knife, slit it open, and white powder spilled out. "Jackpot," the officer said into his radio. "We have a positive on the contraband. Secure the crew, all of them." Beatrice was dragged down the aisle past the first-class passengers she had preened in front of. "Just minutes ago, you ruined my flight. You get what you deserve," the businessman named Connor shouted at her as she passed, recording the whole thing on his phone. They dragged her out onto the jet bridge, down the stairs, and onto the tarmac. Silas was waiting there. Beatrice looked ragged. Her hair was messy, her mascara running. She looked at Silas, her eyes filled with hate. "You did this," she spat. "You ruined my life over a toy." Silas handed Noah to a waiting social worker he had called to help with the kids. For a moment, he stepped closer to Beatrice. "I didn't do anything, Miss Holloway," Silas said, his voice deep and resonant. "I just turned on the lights. You're the one who was afraid of what we'd see." "My brother will kill you," she hissed. "Your brother?" Silas checked his phone. According to the news, Gregory Holloway was just arrested by the FBI, attempting to board a flight to the Cayman Islands. "It seems he didn't realize that when I grounded the fleet, I grounded all flights, including his private charter." Beatrice's knees buckled. The officers held her up. "Take her away," Silas said, turning his back on her. "I have a flight to catch." "You can't fly," Beatrice screamed as she was shoved into a police van. "You grounded the airline." Silas stopped. He looked back at the empty, silent plane. "I didn't say I was flying sovereign," Silas said. He looked toward the sky where a sleek silver Gulfstream GX50 was descending toward the runway. It had the Sterling Global logo on the tail. "My mechanic fixed my plane," Silas said to Officer Miller, who was looking at him with awe. "Come on, boys, let's go home." But the story wasn't over. The fallout was just beginning. By the time Silas and the twins landed in Atlanta on his private Gulfstream, the world had changed. Silas carried a sleeping Noah down the steps of his plane to his waiting limousine. He didn't check his phone until he was safely inside the armored SUV. The boys buckled in and watching cartoons on the built-in screens. When he finally opened social media, he saw it. Connor, the businessman from Seat to F, had uploaded the video. He hadn't just posted it. He had edited it with subtitles and a clear timeline. The title was simple but devastating. "Flight attendant kicks off grieving father and twins. Karma instantly destroys her." The video was everywhere. It had 45 million views on TikTok, was the #1 trend on X, formerly Twitter, and CNN was already running a segment on it. The footage was damning. It showed Beatrice screaming, her face twisted in ugly rage, pointing at the terrified, crying children. It showed Silas remaining calm, protecting his sons. It showed Captain O'Malley blindly siding with his crew without investigation. Then the pierced resistance, the clip of Beatrice being dragged off the plane in handcuffs, screaming about her brother, followed by the breaking news banner, Sovereign Air CEO arrested in drug trafficking probe. The internet was out for blood. The hashtag Lord of the Grundren was trending globally. Silas put his phone away. He didn't care about the likes. He cared about the cleanup. The next morning, Silas walked into the headquarters of Sovereign Air in downtown Atlanta. The building was a glass tower that screamed opulence, paid for by decades of cutting corners and overcharging customers. Today, it was a funeral home. Employees were crying in the lobby. Security guards were looking nervous when Silas approached the turnstiles. The head of security stepped forward. "Mr. Sterling," the guard said, his voice trembling, "I have orders to deny you entry." Silas didn't stop walking. "From whom?" "Gregory Holloway." "Yes, sir." He called from the detention center. Silas stopped and looked the guard in the eye. "Gregory Holloway is an inmate. I am the owner of the building's debt, which means I own the mortgage, which means I own the lights, the elevators, and the chair you sit in. If you stop me, you're fired. If you let me up, you keep your pension." The guard hesitated for exactly 1 second. Then he swiped his own badge. "Elevator 4 is express to the boardroom, Mr. Sterling." Silas walked into the boardroom on the 50th floor. The board of directors sat there, 12 men and women in expensive suits who had looked the other way, while Gregory turned the Airline into a cartel mule. They looked up as Silas entered. He didn't sit. He threw a heavy file onto the mahogany table. It slid across the polished surface and hit the wall with a loud thwack. "Who are you?" One board member, a man named Percival, demanded. "I am the Reaper," Silas said coldly. He walked to the head of the table where Gregory's empty chair sat. He spun it around and sat down. "As of 8:00 a.m., I have exercised the foreclosure clause on Sovereign Air's operating loans. The company is insolvent. We can restructure," Percival shouted. "We have assets. We have the fleet." "Your fleet is impounded by the D," Silas corrected him. "Your brand is toxic. I just checked the stock price. It's trading at 12 cents. Yesterday, it was $40. The room went silent. "Here's what is going to happen," Silas said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous rumble. "I am dissolving the board. Effective immediately. You are all fired. No severance, no golden parachutes. And if you try to sue me, I will release the internal emails my forensic accountants found this morning. The ones where you discussed ignoring safety protocols to save money on maintenance." Faces went pale. "I am rebranding the assets." Silas continued. "Sovereign Air is dead. The planes will be stripped, repainted, and sold to a new entity. I am creating Sterling Aviation. We will be a cargo-only carrier. No passengers, because clearly this company doesn't know how to treat human beings." "You can't do this," a woman whispered. "The Holloway family built this. The Holloway family used this company to abuse my children and traffic narcotics." Silas said, standing up. "I am burning it to the ground to purify it." He walked to the door, then paused. "Oh, and one more thing. I've frozen the Holloway family trust. Their lawyers won't be paid. Beatrice and Gregory are going to have to use public defenders." He walked out, leaving 12 powerful executives staring at their ruin. 6 months later, the United States District Court for the Northern District of Georgia was packed. It was the trial of the decade. United States versus Gregory Holloway, Beatrice Holloway, and Richard O'Malley. The charges were extensive. For Gregory, racketeering, drug trafficking, wire fraud. For Beatrice, drug trafficking, child endangerment, filing a false police report. For O'Malley, conspiracy and gross negligence. Silas sat in the front row, wearing a navy suit. He wasn't a witness today. He was a spectator. He wanted to see it finished. Beatrice sat at the defense table. She looked nothing like the polished tyrant of the skies she had been. Her roots were grown out, her face was gaunt, and she wore a beige prison jumpsuit. She refused to look at the gallery. Gregory looked worse. He had lost 30 pounds and was twitching nervously. The defense strategy was pathetic. Their public defender, an overworked man named Mr. Klein, was trying to argue that Beatrice was coerced by her brother, and that Gregory was coerced by the cartel. They were painting themselves as victims, Your Honor, Mr. Klein argued. Miss Holloway was terrified. She acted out of stress on the plane because she was under immense pressure. Her reaction to Mr. Sterling's children was a mental break, not malice. Silas scoffed softly. The prosecutor, a sharp-witted woman named District Attorney Reynolds, stood up. A mental break, Reynolds asked. Let's review the evidence. She played the audio from the cockpit voice recorder, which had been seized along with the plane. The courtroom listened in stunned silence as Beatrice's voice filled the room. Clear and hateful. I don't care about the cost. I care about the safety and comfort of actual premium passengers. People who belong here, not lottery winners. Then a new clip played, one the jury hadn't heard yet. It was recorded in the galley on the plane's internal camera system, just minutes before the boarding. Beatrice was on the phone. Greg, I'm nervous the cart is loaded, but if anyone looks too close, yeah. I know the payout. I'm buying that villa in Tuscany next week. Just make sure the customs guys are paid off in London. The mental break defense shattered instantly. It wasn't stress, it was greed. Calculated. Cold greed. Then came the testimony regarding the children. Silas was called to the stand for the victim impact statement. He walked up, took the oath, and sat down. He looked directly at Beatrice. She finally looked up, and for a moment, he saw a flicker of the old arrogance, but it was quickly drowned out by fear. Mr. Sterling, D.A. Reynolds asked, can you tell the court how this incident affected your sons? Noah and Liam are 5, Silas said quietly. They don't understand drug trafficking. They don't understand corporate debt. What they understand is that a woman in a uniform screamed at them for dropping a teddy bear. They understand that policemen took their daddy away for months. Noah wouldn't sleep without a light on. Liam asks me every time we go to the airport if the bad lady is going to be there. Silas leaned forward, his voice hardening. I have spent my life building wealth to protect my family. I thought money was the shield. But that day, money didn't matter to Miss Holloway. She saw a black man and a black boys in first class, and she decided we were trash. She decided we were disposable. She didn't know I could buy her airline. But what if I couldn't? What if I was just a teacher or a mechanic? She would have ruined my life and slept like a baby. He turned to the judge. They aren't sorry, Your Honor. They are sorry they got caught. They are sorry they picked the one passenger who could fight back. The courtroom was silent. You could hear a pin drop. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. We find the defendant Gregory Holloway guilty on all counts. We find the defendant Beatrice Holloway guilty on all counts. We find the defendant Richard O'Malley guilty on conspiracy. Judge Harriet Thorne, a stern woman with zero tolerance for nonsense, adjusted her glasses to read the sentencing. Gregory Holloway, you used a commercial airline to poison our streets. You are sentenced to 30 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. Gregory sobbed, his head hitting the table. Beatrice Holloway, Judge Thorne continued, your cruelty was the catalyst for this investigation. You abused your power to terrorize children and facilitate a felony. You are sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. Beatrice screamed, 20 years, my life is over. You can't do this, you did it to yourself. Judge Thorne said, banging the gavel, bailiffs, take them away. As they were dragged out, Beatrice locked eyes with Silas one last time. You ruined me, she shrieked. I hope you're happy. Silas didn't blink. He simply checked his watch, stood up, and buttoned his jacket. He walked out of the courtroom into a swarm of reporters. Microphones were shoved in his face. Mr. Sterling, do you have a comment on the verdict? Do you feel justice was served? What will happen to the airline? Silas stopped at the bottom of the courthouse steps. He looked into the cameras. Justice is a heavy thing, Silas said. It doesn't fix the past. My sons are still scared of planes. But let this be a lesson to anyone who thinks a uniform gives them the right to bully the vulnerable. You never know who you're talking to, and you never know when the bill is going to come due. He turned to his lawyer, Arthur. Come on, we have a company to run. But as Silas walked away, he knew one thing was missing, the final twist. Because in the world of the Holloways, betrayal ran deep, and the hard karma wasn't done yet. The wheels of justice turn slowly, but they grind exceedingly fine. 20 years had passed since the day Sovereign Air fell from the sky. The world had moved on. The name Sovereign was now just a footnote in business textbooks, a cautionary tale about corporate malefices. The glass tower in Atlanta was now the headquarters of Sterling Logistics, a global humanitarian aid network that delivered food and medicine to crisis zones. But inside the gray, imposing walls of the Ironwood Federal Correctional Institution, time had stood still for Beatrice Holloway. Prison had not been kind to her. The once glamorous flight attendant, who used to spend her weekends in Tuscany and her evenings sipping champagne, was now inmate 8940. Her blonde hair had turned a dull, weary gray. Her skin, once pampered with the most expensive creams, was lined with the deep grooves of bitterness. She wasn't just older, she was harder, and she was angry. For 2 decades, she had sat in her cell, nursing a grudge that kept her warm at night. She didn't blame herself. She didn't blame her brother Gregory, who had died of a heart attack in prison 5 years prior. She blamed him, Silas Sterling, the man who had overreacted, the man who had ruined her life because of a drop toy. But today, Beatrice felt a spark of hope. Today was her parole hearing. She had served her mandatory minimum. She had kept her nose clean, mostly. She had attended the mandated anger management classes. Even if she sat in the back rolling her eyes, she was certain she would be released. She was 55 years old. Surely the board would see that she was no longer a threat to society. She walked into the hearing room, her hands cuffed loosely in front of her. The room was sterile, smelling of floor wax and stale coffee. 3 people sat behind the long table. To the left, a tired-looking woman scribbling on a notepad. To the right, an older man who looked bored. But in the center sat the chairperson of the parole board. He was young for the position, perhaps in his late 20s. He wore a tailored black suit that fit his broad shoulders perfectly. His skin was a deep, rich mahogany, and he wore wire-rimmed glasses that gave him an air of intellectual intensity. He was reading her file, his expression unreadable. Beatrice sat down and put on her best, remorseful face, a slight frown, eyes downcast, shoulders slumped. "State your name for the record," the young man in the center said. His voice was deep, resonant, and oddly familiar. It sent a shiver down Beatrice's spine, though she couldn't place why. "Beatrice Holloway," she said softly. "Miss Holloway," the young man began, not looking up from the file. "You have served 20 years of a 25-year sentence for drug trafficking, child endangerment, and filing false federal reports. You are asking for early release based on good behavior." "Yes, sir," Beatrice said. "I've learned my lesson." "I've had a lot of time to think, have you?" The man looked up. His eyes were dark and piercing. "Tell us what you've learned." Beatrice took a breath. She had rehearsed this. "I learned that I made mistakes. I was under a lot of pressure from my brother. He was the CEO. I felt I had no choice. I was just following orders. I didn't know the extent of the operation. It was a lie. She knew everything, but Gregory was dead, so he couldn't contradict her." "And the incident on the plane?" the man asked. "The incident that led to your arrest?" "The removal of the passengers," Beatrice sighed. "That was unfortunate. It was a stressful day. We were behind schedule. I admit I was short with the passenger, but you have to understand, sir. First class is a very specific environment. I was trying to maintain order. The passenger, Mr. Sterling, was very aggressive." The media twisted it. The young man didn't blink. He just stared at her. The media twisted it. "There was video evidence. Ms. Holloway, you were screaming at 5-year-old children." Beatrice waved a hand dismissively. "They were unruly, and frankly, the father used his wealth to destroy me. It was a vindictive act. I lost everything because of a dropped teddy bear. Doesn't 20 years seem like enough punishment for being rude?" The young man leaned forward, interlacing his fingers. "So, in your view, you are the victim here. I'm saying the punishment didn't fit the crime." Beatrice said, gaining confidence, "I'm an old woman now. I just want to go home. I have a niece in Ohio. I just want to live a quiet life." The man on the right looked at the chairperson. "She has had a clean disciplinary record for the last 5 years, Mr. Chairman." The chairperson nodded slowly. He closed the file. "Ms. Holloway, he said. Do you remember the names of the children you kicked off the plane that day? Beatrice blinked. The children? No. Why would I? It was 20 years ago. Their names were Noah and Liam. The chairperson said, okay. Beatrice shrugged. Well, I'm sure they're fine. They had a billionaire father. They probably grew up spoiled and happy. Happy is a strong word, the man said. Noah had nightmares for 3 years. He developed a severe anxiety disorder regarding travel. He couldn't get on a plane until he was 18. He missed school trips. He missed family vacations. He grew up terrified that if he made a mistake, if he dropped a toy or spoke too loud, someone in a uniform would come and take his father away. Beatrice shifted uncomfortably. I didn't know that. No, you didn't, because you never asked in 20 years. You never once sent a letter of apology. You apologized to the court. You apologized to the airline board, but you never apologized to the family. I was told not to contact them, Beatrice said defensively. The no-contact order expired 10 years ago. The man countered. He stood up. He reached into his pocket and pulled something out. He set it gently on the table. It was a small, worn-out plush airplane. It was faded, missing one wing, and looked like it had been loved to death. Beatrice stared at the toy. Her breath caught in her throat. She remembered that toy. She remembered the sound it made when it hit the floor of the cabin. Jingle. She looked up at the man, really looked at him. She saw the set of his jaw, the shape of his eyes. Oh my God, she whispered. My name is Noah Sterling, the chairperson said. And I am not here because my father bought me a seat. I am here because I went to law school. I became a federal prosecutor. And last year, I was appointed to the parole board. The room fell into a dead silence. The other two board members looked at Noah in shock, then at Beatrice. Beatrice's face went white. This is a conflict of interest. You can't judge me. I disclosed my identity to the State Ethics Committee before taking this hearing. Noah said calmly, they reviewed my record. They deemed me capable of being impartial. And I am impartial, Miss Holloway. I am not judging you for what you did to me when I was 5. I am judging you for who you are today. He picked up the file. I listened to you for 20 minutes. Noah said, I waited for 1 ounce of genuine remorse. I waited for you to say, I hurt those boys and I am sorry. But all you did was blame my father. All you did was minimize your cruelty. You haven't changed, Beatrice. You're just quieter. Please, Beatrice stammered, tears finally forming real tears of terror. Please, Noah. Mr. Sterling, I'm old. I'll die in here. You trafficked poison that killed people. Noah said, his voice hard as steel, you used your authority to bully the weak. And today, you showed that you still believe you were justified. The purpose of parole is to release those who have been rehabilitated. You are not rehabilitated. You are just sorry you lost. Noah picked up the stamp. The sound of it hitting the paper echoed like a gunshot. Denied. You will serve the remainder of your sentence. Noah said, 5 more years. Maybe by then you'll remember my brother's name too. No. Beatrice screamed as the guard stepped forward. You can't do this. You planned this. It's a trap. It's not a trap, Noah said, gathering his papers. It's the consequence. He walked out of the room as Beatrice was dragged away, her screams echoing down the hallway, fading into the oblivion of the prison. Outside the prison, the autumn air was crisp and cool. Silas Sterling was leaning against the hood of a vintage convertible, the car he had always promised himself he'd buy when the work was done. His hair was completely white now, but he still stood tall, his posture commanding. He saw Noah walk out of the heavy metal doors. Noah loosened his tie and took a deep breath of fresh air. Silas didn't ask what happened. He knew his son. He knew Noah was fair. But he also knew Noah had a memory like a steel trap. You okay? Silas asked as Noah approached. I'm good, Dad, Noah said. He looked back at the prison walls. It's finished. Did she recognize you? Not at first. Noah smiled, a sad, weary smile. She saw the suit. She saw the position. She didn't see the boy. She never did, Silas said. He opened the car door. That was her mistake. She never saw people. She only saw status. Where's Liam? Noah asked. Getting into the passenger seat. Liam is in London, Silas said, starting the engine. He's closing the deal on the new European hub for Sterling Logistics. He said to tell you he's proud of you, and he wants to know if you kept the toy. Noah patted his pocket. Always. Silas put the car in gear. You know, son, 20 years ago. I told her that she picked the wrong family. I didn't mean my money. I meant us. We survive. We build. We don't just get even. We get better. We get justice, Noah corrected him. That too. Silas grinned. How about dinner? I know a place that doesn't require a boarding pass. Noah laughed, a genuine, free laugh that he hadn't been able to find for a long time. Sounds perfect, Dad. As the car drove away, leaving the prison behind, the sun began to set, casting long, golden shadows across the road. Beatrice Holloway remained in her cage, trapped by the walls she had built herself, while the Sterling family drove on, free, powerful, and together. The karma hadn't just hit back, it had closed the book in the end. Beatrice Holloway learned the hardest lesson of all. Power is not a uniform, a title, or a first-class seat. True power is character. When she kicked her father and his sons off that plane, she thought she was discarding trash. Instead, she was planting seeds. Seeds of justice that would grow into the very trees that would one day block her path to freedom. Silas Sterling used his wealth to stop a criminal empire. But it was his son Noah who used the law to ensure that evil never rose again. It's a reminder to us all, treat every person with dignity, because the child you mistreat today could be the judge who holds your fate tomorrow. If you enjoyed this story of ultimate revenge and justice, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel. Don't forget to share this video with a friend who needs a little satisfaction today. And subscribe with notifications on, so you never miss a story. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.